Hey ladies, how you doing today? It is
Excellent.
We are the Ides of March right now, March of 2025. Yay. I hear that in Canada spring has sprung, right?
Yes. Yes,
Starting
it has.
and I don't know what's it like in Minneapolis.
It's a little chilly. We're expecting some snowy weather tomorrow.
And that's so par for Minnesota. And of course, we hit 100 degrees for the first time on March 13th down here in South Texas. Oh, God. And we've had 3 days already, over that. So
Oh,
since then, what in 5 days? Great. It's going to be a long summer. So, listen, I wanted to talk about psychic vampires, and the reason why this whole thing came up for me was I have the displeasure of having some dark energy within my purview. I'm not gonna go into names or places or dates or anything. I'm just saying that I have a grifter amongst my circumstances right now, and I have had some clients come to me very upset because they have children are going to be gravely ill, and their husbands are cheating and getting ready to leave them, and they've got bad curses on them, and it's all due to this one person. And I just posted a video an hour ago on my channel called Tarot Doesn't Do That. And it's all about that. It's all about grifting, and it's all about, but a grifter kind of is a psychic vampire in a way. They draw on your weaknesses, and then they play on them, and they suck the energy out to keep you, in one place or another. So that's why I kind of wanted to do this. But in delving into this, I've really, learned a lot. And I wanted to start by, let's define, what a psychic vampire is, or an energy vampire, which to me, which is kind of one and the same. A psychic vampire is someone who, whether intentionally or unintentionally, sucks the energy out of those around them. And we think of them as people, but I learned in my research that it can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. Anything that robs you of your joy and your power is an energy vampire, and that could be bad habits, it could be addictions, depression, news, social media content, just as examples. So, what do you think about that?
Mhm, mhm. That's
I
exactly
hate the
it is.
term. Oh, like we had gone through this, the other day when we were talking. I hate the term, but I get the metaphor, really. And I think
Right. And that's
one of
all
the
it
things
is.
that I the one of the things that I think is really, really important is this is not other people doing stuff to us, which so often we live in a very narcissistic society, and where I am the star of the show and everybody else kind of run, and people are doing things to me, and we are culturally encouraged to think of ourselves as victims, right? We're the victim of somebody else, and we have no agency. There's a lot of reasons culturally for that, not going into it, or we'd be here for 2 hours. But one of the things that I think that tarot brings to us in a lot of other these kind of modalities is the idea that we do have agency, and we may feel we're reacting to these other energies around us, but we're in the driver's seat. And it really, I find that, using tarot in these respects, one is identifying the problem, and the other one is realizing that you can respond and react to this, and you're in control of this. It gives you your agency back.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. It's a behavior. It's then humans create the trauma. So for me, looking at it is it deliberate? If it's a deliberate thing, it's an attack. If it's intentional, it's an assault. So I look at those pieces, and I'm great at writing things down, and I'll make two sides, pros and cons. How do I feel? When did I notice it? When did it come in? all these things. And it all comes down to a big ball at the end that says, wait a minute, if I set my boundaries, if I manage my energy, and I'm aware of my surroundings and love myself, who can attack that? Nobody.
Mhm.
I'm a Marvel comic book person. It just bounces off of me. So you have to keep that protection up, because there's many times there's those that don't even realize that they've sent that out. They don't know that they've had that energy.
Because often you're dealing with a wounded individual.
Exactly.
Right? You're dealing with a wounded psyche. They're not trying to be malicious.
No.
Okay, so I have two situations, and they're quite different. One situation is there is a woman, I call her the Wicked Witch of something. I won't blah blah something. Anyway, she manages an RV park we used to stay at. Outrageously heavily religious, and I respect that. But when she found out that I was a tarot reader, I'm telling you, you could see the venom dripping, the blood dripping off her chin. And every time that I am in her presence, I am just so affected by the energy, the negative energy that she sends my way, that I can hardly take it. And for that, I kind of feel like it's almost like there's a shame, there's something deep down inside of me. I do sense that it's something that I am allowing. But I have another situation where there's a lady, and she is well, actually, it's kind of interesting because she's also very religious. I mean, kindest person. She devotes all of her time and her energy and her beliefs to her church. We do not discuss tarot, although she doesn't want to hear about it, but she doesn't seem to hold that against me. I have known her for many years, and when I'm in her presence any longer than an hour at the very most, I am so nervous. It's like my whole system feels like I drank, a pot of espresso. I can hardly stay in my own skin. She just irritates me so bad. She never shuts the hell up. And I can't take it. And, whenever she invited us over for dinner, it was always, well, come on over early, and we'll watch the football game, and then we'll have dinner, and then we'll go sit out and have a fire afterward. It's like, oh my God, that's like 4 to 6 hours. I couldn't possibly, I could barely. And I made up an excuse for 20 years. I made up an excuse why we had to come and eat and run. And I just don't understand, there's something about her that I don't feel like it's coming from me. I feel like it's literally, I just considered it a personality conflict. So I don't know where that comes from. But
it doesn't mean that I think and the reason I don't like the term energy vampire, right, is because it robs you of your agency. Right? And to me, the ability to stand in your own self-confidence, the Queen of Wands, and you are Queen of Wands energy, right? That comes about, it needs to be harnessed, and you stand in your own self-confidence. And when that is chipped away from underneath you, which is what the shadow does, it chips away your self-confidence and your sense of self-definition, then that unbalances you. And so this other stuff around you is very upsetting. But I mean, this nice little church lady, she's not trying to be mean to you, right? She's
I don't know about that.
I mean, mean, right? Now the other lady who has her own axe to grind about tarot and all that sort of stuff, they are there, but she can't impact you because you're the Queen of Wands.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, we don't talk, the second lady, we don't talk about this stuff. It's just that she just is constantly, it's like when I say she just never shuts the hell up. She just talks about stuff that it's like, enough already. I don't care about all that stuff. I don't know. It's just who she is. She's not doing anything to me. She just, oh my God. anyway, I know that you, Kate, are you're in the process of doing shadow work now. I know you, Dee, have already
Absolutely.
done that. And
Mhm.
so you guys right now are probably a lot more aware than I am. And so maybe that's why it's like all of a sudden it's kind of like a shock right now with this whole grifter situation. Like, all right, so I need to, I have people around me that just irritate me, and I think that I need to start addressing that so that
Yep.
I'm, for my own self, just so I'm relaxed and easy.
Why am I
easy.
reacting like this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Why is this
right.
upsetting me?
exactly.
Why is it?
So
And those,
Yeah, and
I
put on those feelings so that you can pre-plan. If
right.
you out even in your store when you start going into your to do your readings and stuff, you should be grounding. You should be
Yeah.
putting up your screens. You should be ask your spirit guides to come in. How many
I
you want?
do. I
It's
I do try.
up.
I do ritualize as soon as I hit my shop. I
Mhm.
will. I have a ritual that I've begun. Well, ever since I got there. So, like the first thing I do is I reorder my cards, all my cards that are on the table. I mean, that's the first thing, and then I have other things that I do. We are missing, well, we're missing Yvonne because of a family situation, but we are missing Anne Marie, and I don't know why, but she brought some amazing things to our table. There is a video about Jung and how he looks at, or the psychology of energy vampires, if you will. And it was brilliant. And I have put several things for viewers in our description below. And the first one is Anne Marie's, is that video. And she was going to talk about that. So I don't know where she is. She's kind of missing in action. Hopefully she'll get here soon. But one of the things in that video, well, there were two in particular that really fascinated me. One was projection, the other one was emotional contagion. But on projection, it's about how we project onto others or how they project onto us aspects of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge.
That'll
And
work.
and one of the examples of that, which I thought was pretty cool, was anger. People with anger issues. It's like if I'm really angry about something, I can come home, it's like, coming home and kicking the dog, right? Now, of course, I would never do that, but I'm saying, I kick my husband instead, right? It's like, how come, I thought I asked you to empty the dishwasher, and how come the plants aren't watered, and how come the dogs aren't fed? And I just start in if I'm angry about something instead of just coming in and owning being angry. It's kind of that passive aggressive thing. We're taking it out on, I just take, I throw it out to the universe, and whoever's in my way, runs for the hills. And so I understand that, but that's that projection. And when people project onto me, I think that I have empathic tendencies, and I take it on. I bring it. I said, bring it on, baby. I'll take on whatever you got. And then they leave, and I'm like, I got a tick. You know what I'm saying? When they're done, and that is that projection thing. Um, uh, and then the emotional contagion I thought was interesting. And it said, so we pick up on someone radiating emotions like resentment, fear, or anger, right? That cause us to mimic and then internalize the emotional states of those around us. And he gave the example of someone who, again, hasn't accepted their own anger and then might lash out, with that behavior. But I can see that, someone's upset about something, and then I get all upset, and it's not even mine to own. It's somebody else's stuff, but I pick up on it.
and then it's got a physiological grounding to it. All
Yes.
right. In our minds, we have things called mirror neurons.
That's right. He talks
Where
about that.
I mean, we didn't know about this for a very long time. It's a fairly recent development in neuropsychology, but it's how because as human animals, we require that ability to gauge or to understand or to put ourselves in the minds of not only the people in our own tribe and group, but also to imagine what is in the mind and the imagination, and how the other group on the other side of the hill might be thinking right now, right? If we didn't have this, and this is what these mirror neurons do for us, is to give us that ability to reflect on something else. So this ability to read the room, as the expression goes, is a human survival skill. And yes, and people that pay attention to them, we call them empaths. There's a lot of people that repress it, and it's just like the guy who can't read the room. Like, pay attention to what's going on. Everybody's looking at you, and he's still blathering on. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So in down below, the last link that I put in our description, it's a short from YouTube, and the guy says, I'm an energy vampire, and then it shows him in an office environment and showing him do it. It's hysterical, and I had to add it just because it's like so appropriate, right? So so what does it look like in this phenomenal video that she sent us, Anne Marie sent us? They talk about one, two, three, actually four, five different how an energy vampire shows itself. One is a victim, right? Mm-hmm. It's like it's constantly in need of being enabled, of being rescued, of being constantly going through that. There's the narcissist who demands attention and validation. And what I loved the term was a one-sided energy transfer. Mm-hmm. It's like take, and they're not giving anything back. And why am I so energized and so comfortable around one person and feel so fulfilled and energized when they leave the room compared to the other guy that totally depletes you? And that's that energy transfer. One is reciprocal and the other one isn't. And I just we all know that, we all sense it and feel it. It's just to put a label on it is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is so much of Jung's work, and what we're talking about, the martyr and the victim and all that. These are the Jungian archetypes, and it's just taking them out of the theoretical and the abstract, which of course is how Jung talked about them, and bringing them into the real life examples that we have of how to deal with it, how to recognize it on the street.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about here in just a little bit, because I think that would be really helpful. Number 3 on that list was martyr, because I know we watched the same video. And I thought it was interesting. They use sacrifice, or they self-sacrifice and use it as a currency. Mm-hmm. Hey, I gave up this for you. You need to do this for me type thing, which leads us into the manipulator, right? That manipulates us into doing things that we want. And then it's like, and then it says just a general energy vampire, drama queens, dominators that, and people that just fill the room with fragmented energy. She's bouncing all over off the walls, which, I know somebody, anyway, it all boils down to every single one of those takes more than they give. Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting. Does anybody here have a story or an example of something either recently or not that has happened where you felt like you had to break away, or where it just became obvious that you were in the presence of an energy sucker?
Yeah, I probably had a relationship with somebody who, in retrospect, I suspect was what they call a covert narcissist, mm-hmm. right? Which doesn't have the grandiosity and the flamboyance that we associate with narcissism, but it really was this, and it's a very manipulative energy. But when you look underneath it and you spend some time in that energy and looking around it, this was an extremely traumatized individual, somebody who is suffering from great and deep psychic wounds, right? Mm-hmm. She was trying her best to meet her needs. Unfortunately, the modality that she had learned was through manipulating others, right?
Yeah, it's a learned response.
Yeah. I ended up pulling myself away. Actually, we have no contact. I went no contact because it had become that severe,
Mhm.
and it wasn't doing my mental health any good. But this, I that's what I was saying at the beginning. There was no viciousness involved in this. She didn't wake up in the morning scheming about how she was going to do this. But she was like all the rest of us in survival mode, trying to do the best that she can. And this is her trying to patch up and bandage those deep, deep gouges in her psyche from very traumatic events that she has never dealt with.
And if
I
you're
got
not,
a bucket full of them too that I'm working on.
yeah, I hear you. So
Yeah.
the main signs of this are people who are just like take all the time, take from you. People who love drama, people who prey on kindness, and people who guilt trip you. Those are kind of like the mainstream signs of things to start looking for. And also, the video talked about watching for repeat patterns, to that we keep attracting, the same type of people. That's a really good sign that you have some shadow work to do. That you're
Absolutely.
attracting.
Probably the number one sign. When the
Yep.
same problem keeps showing up in your life in different formats,
Yep.
the problem isn't out there. The problem is here.
Right. Everything that irritates us about others it can lead us back to our own issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So, um, uh, I want to talk a couple of things I want to talk about. One is how we can protect ourselves, and then Dee has some tarot cards that would help us. I mean, let's talk about protecting ourselves, but then, how do we acknowledge this when we're sitting at the reading table? How can, because I'm there every day and I want to see how, it's like of course, now after talking to Dee, now I know what's going to come up, and I'm going to start looking deeper into this. But number one, and this is the list that I found. Just become more aware. Take a quick inventory of your feelings after interactions with people. And this is something I want to start doing today. I want to start, every time, just really start paying attention to how I'm feeling. And then, but if you make note of it, I think if you journal some of that stuff, this is how I felt. All of a sudden, you're going to go back and read that journal and go, oh, I'm starting to see, you're writing something that's exactly what you wrote and forgot about 3 days ago, and
Yeah.
then the week before that. That's a wonderful way to do it.
And that's how you find the patterns, right? That we
Right.
were talking about.
And when you're doing that, you track your energy level, and figure out what triggered that. What was the trigger that caused you to feel that way? Set clear boundaries, recognizing when somebody crosses your emotional boundaries. And that's the one thing that at empaths, we have some of us that have empathic tendencies. It's, by the time we recognize it, it's too late. They've already, crossed over the boundary, and then the next one, and manage your psychic energy. Managing your energy, meaning do something about it. That could be meditation. It's recentering yourself, finding ways to recenter yourself, and don't wait until it's upon you to do it. I mean, do it in advance so that you don't get there and, you're centered before you get there in the first place. So, and that again could contain shadow work. Anybody else comment on that stuff?
I do a lot of grounding. And
Yeah.
when I do my grounding, those are the things I actually ask specific about what I want to come up and show me. What did I miss? What should I be looking at? Where am I going with it? And I do that mainly. I do use stones. I carry certain stones on me, like the shungite and the black tourmaline, just to help filter to see. But probably those.
Do you carry them on you all the time, or do you carry them when you feel you need them? I find that I take stones when I need something. I'll pick particular stones and drop them in my purse and carry them with me when I go places.
I carry them in my pocket.
Yeah.
So, listen, if I ever got
I've got mine There's my black tourmaline, right?
There you go.
And I have it right here. And then when I'm reading, there it is.
Yes.
On
Yeah.
the chain.
I'll throw them, and if they end up in my bra, I always say, I hope no one's going to do CPR, because if they have to lift the bra up, there's going to be a whole pile of stones up there.
An avalanche.
An avalanche, exactly. But there's certain days that I'm not sure what's pushing at me, but I just grab my specific stones and carry them with me.
Now, I don't know if this handles universally, but one of the things that I've learned to appreciate is anger is a response that you have to a boundary being crossed. So when you get that sudden spark of anger, now we culturally have a tendency that I mind that and I grieve it and I cultivate it and I go through it and over in my mind. Kind of leave that aside. That initial spark where you feel anger, just pause for a minute. What is going on? Because quite often that will be the roadside. My emotional boundaries were crossed right here by this at this time. And that will provide you a lot of information about what you're dealing with.
Let me ask you, do you ever stop to wonder or think about why that triggered? Or what was it about? All right, it's one thing to have a boundary crossed and feel like, oh, there's a boundary. But have you ever looked into why that's a boundary, or why that would even affect you? If somebody said something that made your blood boil, for example, and it triggered and said, ooh, that's a boundary that's the thing. But have you ever looked into like why would you listen, you may not agree with something somebody says, but why does it why is it upsetting you so badly? Right? Yes.
That's intellectual, right?
Yes.
That when you get that, when it goes from the intellectual, we're arguing about an idea,
and then we go red flag on it. Yeah.
And also flash over, right? Yes. And usually can't do it on the fly. But I do put a pin in it.
Yep.
Onto the bulletin board, right? And then when I'm doing, often it's meditation, whatever, journaling or something, and getting into why in that nanosecond was I triggered? Why did I go from being intellectually and dealing with it as an idea
red zone
to right, red mist? Here we go.
Yeah.
So the gold is in the flashover.
Right.
And then it's to sit down later, and usually because you need time, you need space, you need a sense of privacy, you need a sense that you are safe, all those kinds of things. And that usually in my life is not in the moment.
Right. And I mean, I've seen you go red zone, so that's why I was asking. And but it's almost as if you are so aware of your boundaries that you're ready. You're ready to stand and do battle for them. Where for me, it's the opposite. It's like somebody can trounce all over me and talk about something that, and yet I just absorb it, and then boom, I crash and burn with it instead of, it's just it's two opposite reactions to the same trigger. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think that's real interesting.
And it's something that when we're talking about shadow work, it's something that I have tried to repress, right? Because I'm a little bit ashamed of how I react sometimes.
Yeah, me too.
When I go from 0 to 60 in 2.2 nanoseconds, I can think of myself as being a rational person. And when I have these moments of emotional irrationality, I'm ashamed of how I behave. I regret. I'm running around for a week apologizing. I'm sorry, I was such an ass.
Yeah. I feel this sensation of energy being wasted. Like I am upset or annoyed. I feel like flames are coming out of my mouth, my eyes. But it's like, stop wasting the energy.
Yeah.
That tells me, hold back, let it go, fall off the back of my head and down on the floor so I can take a good look at it as a puddle and then proceed.
Yeah,
I want it to stick.
I was going to ask you, Dee, we all have different things that we use to ground. I was going to ask you what works best for you. Give us a couple of examples of how you ground that works best for you.
Well, I ground wherever I'm at. I send down my energies through my feet. And if I'm outside, I kick my shoes up, do it on the grass. If I'm wherever I'm at in my vehicle, if I'm sitting there waiting for something, so I'll kick off one shoe and sit and put a foot down. Let those feelings go down and send them back up through all my chakras and open me up. And that's why I say, do you set yourself or prime yourself before you go somewhere? I do it whenever I leave. I get it up in the morning. It's the first thing I do. I call in the violet flame. I call in for spirit guides if I need that. And I know I've always got them to watch my back. They're great wingmen, wingwoman, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, that's how I start my day. And I most times pretty on key with things that come into me. And if I don't see it or understand it, then I have to say, wait, this is something I wasn't expecting. I need to look at this better.
See, but she does a really good job of catching it at the time. See, and that's someone who's been through, who's done the work, and that's kind of a cool thing. My tarot coach from way back, he told me something that I just never forgot, and he said that it takes carbon dioxide for the chlorophyll, the chlorophyll, or the sun, provides the chlorophyll to the leaves, and but they need carbon dioxide in order to live, to breathe. The trees do. We need the opposite. We need the oxygen that the chlorophyll pours into the air from the leaves. And so he said, when you breathe in, you're breathing in what that tree, he said, pick a tree. And I picked an oak tree. This is back when I was in Minneapolis. And he said, pick a tree. And he said, breathe in the oxygen that they are providing and they are gifting to you. And then you exhale back out the carbon dioxide that they need to survive and to live. And it's a mutual thing between the two of you. And I've never forgotten that. And I will do that occasionally. And another thing that I discovered was, sorry, I'll let you guys. How about you, Kate? What do you do to ground?
I have a grounding meditation that I use, and it's very much like what Dee was talking about, that whole idea. And this one, I can't even remember where I got it from. It was some yoga teacher, and it's about imagining that you have a ball in the center of your body, right, in and around the pelvis. And then you breathe. And as you breathe in, the ball rises. And then as you exhale, the ball goes down. But each time the ball goes down further, right? So eventually the ball is no longer your pelvis, but the bottom of its thing is your knees and then your feet. And then it goes down to the ground. And then it goes down, like I'm on the 3rd floor right now. It goes right down into the earth. And this is this earth meditation. And it's about feeling. And as the ball rises up, it brings the energy, grounding energy of the earth up to you, and then you send it back down. And it is, again, like you said, this reciprocal idea that we have.
That's cool. And another thing that I've started doing is there are these like 5-minute meditation things that you can find all over the internet. I recorded a few of them onto a flash drive, and I'll listen to them on the way to work. I can listen to about 3 of them on the way to work, and I'll just let them play. And by the time I get there, I'm kind of zen, kind of zenned out, a little bit. So, hey, Dee, listen, you came up with some tarot cards that can represent energy vampires. So I'm thinking about, when I'm reading and somebody comes to me, they have like this problem, and we start laying out the cards. You came up with some cards that I thought it would be really interesting to stop me as a reader and say, and ask a question pertaining to, you know what I'm saying? It might redirect how I ask questions and how I start conversations with people, because in my readings are conversations. back and forth. And I asked them, about, why are you doing this, or why, how did you get in this spot, or something. So tell me what you came up with.
Well, I kind of, they're the major arcanas is what I pulled for myself. And I basically asked, what makes a card manipulative? And as I looked at it, I thought, this could be looked at as somebody who manipulates, or something that could manipulate. So right down to like the high priestess. Yeah, she could be a manipulator. So to me, that card, if it came out, the devil, draining, addictions, they could be manipulative. The fool, what's the fool? Young, has nothing to lose, but vulnerable, could be easily manipulated and not even have any idea that this was happening. I also threw the hermit in there, and Wheel of Fortune, trying to control, manipulate your choices.
What'd you have for the Hierophant?
Hierophant, well, the Hierophant, if it's upright, it's something that, well, we always say it's an institution or whatever you want to call that. It's an original gullible. You could be gullible with that too. But if it's reversed, if you're doing reversals, it's taking advantage. It's not going forward. You see that?
Yeah.
Also, the Magician. If it's reversed, it's how it's moving, but it's a manipulation, but it can be misused, and it could be energy draining.
And which one was that one again? Was that the
Magician?
The Magician.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So then I thought, well, okay, there's still the Death, Justice, and Temperance. Well, Death is negative. That's draining. Justice, out of balance. And Temperance, it represents a balance, but it could also be someone out of balance if you look at it. I just threw these in myself.
Too, I always talk about the Death card being it's we're fighting the inevitable.
Okay.
There's going to be a change, and you can fight it all you want, but you're not going to stop it. So it's fighting the inevitable. And don't we do that a lot, in our lives? So,
well, you could probably put any kind of meaning that you wanted on these. Just,
yeah.
to me, these kind of stood out if I were
Sure.
looking for that. The only thing that really throws me a lot is if someone asks me a question and they're showing those signs of, I'm seeing signs, but I have this headache all the time, and but I'm afraid to move forward and things like that. Okay, they don't know what's happening. So to me, I read to them whether they are being attacked or they're not being attacked. And if any of these cards would show up, I can use it to make it more solid.
What I was thinking when you were talking about that was you were talking about the Fool, right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking, the Fool card comes up with somebody wanting to affect a change. They don't know how to affect the change, and the Fool comes up. It's like they're totally clueless.
Yeah, they are, because
Clueless.
I thought it was really interesting when you were reading off your list, because I had done a 6-card spread here just to get ready for this.
Yeah.
What came up, Kate?
The two majors that came up was the Death card and Temperance.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I thought now that's something that, and you and I have not discussed this,
Right?
And I didn't see your list of cards, but anyways, I had sent it to Lynn. It was a link, and she said she was putting in the show notes about this workbook that I use. And his first thing that he's got is how to get started on shadow work and what do you need to kind of prioritize. And it's this 6-card spread that was in it, and I just thought it was really friggin' interesting.
I put first the blog that discussed it, and then I put the link below that in our description below that that takes you right to that book. It's a $3 book. I'm buying it as soon as we hang up. I'm going to buy it and but I also, like I said, I also found in the oddest place this mental health journal. And I did put a link to that too. I just love the way it's laid out. I'm going, oh, I mean, just to get you started paying attention every day. Oh, I think if you go through that book, by the time you're done, I don't know how many pages it is. It's not a year's worth, but maybe 30 days or something worth. But if you go through that, I think that would be a really good way to start making yourself aware too. And that was like in the same price range.
Well, it's interesting that I pulled cards this morning for this too, and now that I look at it, I got the High Priestess and the Wheel of Fortune. Those were two of the cards that were in it, besides the 3 queens. Lynn.
You got 4 queens.
4 queens.
And I told you, and you got 4 queens and the High Priestess. And I said, I said, that means that only 4 of us were going to be here today. But in all actuality, it ended up being 3.
Because the High Priestess and the Wheel of Fortune were part of what we're discussing.
Right.
You
of course.
Now, do you want me to pull clarifiers? No, I'm just
Our clarifier queen. That'd be you. That's too funny. What else, you guys? Anybody want to? Anybody? I'm trying to see if I have any more notes here. That the one thing I would like to that I did hear, and I looked at a lot of different things, is what I thought was interesting. Somebody said, how to stop a energy vampire in their tracks was to say something to the effect of, if they say something to you, that's interesting. Why would you say that to me? Or why did you bring that up to me? Because it's a mirror response, right? It turns around and it reflects back on them, and it says it immediately draws them into the light. And the one big sign is about energy vampires is they have no boundaries. They have no limits. And they come in, they take all your time. They don't and sometimes they're not even doing it on purpose. But vampires are very much like bullies. And the only way to call them, the only way to handle them is to call them out into the light. And just like a vampire, right, can't handle the sunlight, bullies can't either. Bullies can't stand being, they can't stand, they like to operate in the shadows. And once they're called out into the light, they tend to back off. And I've kind of used that over the years in my negotiations, in my corporate negotiations. I'd call a spade, and boy, I'll tell you what, you want to watch them, shrivel up and back off. But that worked for me. And so unfortunately that's stuck. Now, I kind of use that a lot more than I should.
Well, I'll sometimes put out there, if I'm feeling that reading the room, I will call upon the divine source and ask for protection and guidance. So be it, and so it is.
Yeah.
Done. I have my part.
So I think that's, yeah. I think this has been a really good conversation. And you know what? I just see this more as a door opening than anything of a conversation. I don't know how much we accomplished here today, but I know that just the act of going through preparing for this discussion and then having this discussion is really open the door to, a need to really have a better understanding of why I react the way I do to certain situations and certain people. And I think that it would be so calming and so helpful to have a better understanding of that and how to then control it. So I think that's really helpful.
And I'd just like to throw in one thing, before we go, is doing shadow work, and tarot actually is an excellent means of doing what Carl Jung actually used it for this, right? Because the visual stimulus helps us access the subconscious where all this stuff lives. It can be an extremely powerful process that can be very overwhelming at times, right? And that people feel that they are being caught into stuff. Before you dive into shadow work, really, It's about laying out in your own mind what kind of resources that you have, whether it's you have a counselor, you have a therapist, you have a friend group or something like that. So that if you do run into something, because we're dealing with things that are about resentment and shame and trauma and anger and rage and all this sort of stuff that can be bubbling up, and things that you aren't even aware of can come to the surface, which is what we're trying to do, is bring it to the surface so we can see it and we can deal with it. And if you don't have anything around you, that can be very, very overwhelming. So before you start on it, kind of go down, make yourself a little checklist of places and people that I can go to if I find myself in a situation of overwhelm. Again, like you said, Dee, first thing you do is protect yourself.
Protect yourself. Be the tree. Be that tree. Walk in. Here's a tree. Look it over. I'm a tree more times than not, and I have no idea what kind of tree I am. But I walk in, I'm a tree.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anne Marie, we were so missing you in this conversation. We were just wrapping up, but your video that I have put down in the description, both of the videos that you recommended, along with some interesting things from Kate, and then a couple of things I found. And I was just, is there something in particular that really jumped out at you with this whole process of researching and studying? Were there any highlights that really jumped out at you? Because we kind of missed your guidance here today. And you don't have volume, Anne. There you go.
Do I have volume now? Okay, so whatever happened, I'm waiting to join you in 5 minutes' time. So
daylight savings time strikes again.
Yes. I come at 6 o'clock all the time, and I have my alarm set for 6. And I just came in here, and I couldn't believe it when I saw. Anyway, you're finishing up, but not to worry. These things always happen for a reason. I'm sorry now that I missed all the exciting stuff that was going on. What did strike me was the whole idea of shadow work. Now, I just caught the tail end of what Kate was saying, but the whole idea of shadow work had never appealed to me all that much, or never. It wasn't my thing. But having read some of the bits and pieces, I thought, it's a nice idea. This whole idea of the shadow work, of finding out, using the tarot to find out all your good parts and your bad parts. So what struck me was that there were some nice questions in some of those videos that you could use the tarot as a prompt, say a 4-card spread, and to sit down and use the tarot as a prompt to find out. Now, if I could find these would be absolutely wonderful. I also came across shadow work, the victims and the narcissist and the martyr and the energy vampire then. And develop self-awareness. That's what came to me, that developing self-awareness is a big thing for protecting yourself against anyone who's trying to, not necessarily even trying to affect you, but it's just happening anyway. So you need to develop greater self-awareness, because a lot of the people who do this, they're coming from a place of unconsciousness. They don't realize this is happening, and they're wondering why people are reacting to them in the way that they do. So from that point of view, I thought doing a bit of shadow work is a great idea.
I had the same thing, Anne Marie. I always kind of poo-pooed. It's like, getting into all that stuff. But after seeing the video, which, by the way, and you need to also to look down into the description of this video, because Kate offered some wonderful things too. And there are some links in this video that, yours included, that we all need to see. But I agree. It's like all of a sudden it made me realize, oh gosh, I should do some shadow work. That would really be helpful. So it's like that kind of came out of this.
I thought that was a great idea. Also, I thought the whole idea of self-care, being aware of your own needs, getting the proper amount of sleep, going to bed early, those type of things that you don't necessarily associate with protecting yourself, but they are part of keeping your life energy safe. So I thought that rang a bell with me. Instead of staying up half the night watching YouTubes, that it might be an idea to set the alarm and go at a reasonable time, and maybe get up at a reasonable time and work it that way. Have a more structured lifestyle. The bit of activity I thought was a great idea, and proper eating. There are things that I hadn't associated particularly with shadow work or minding your energy. They didn't seem to me to be valid from that point of view. And check out, I have a little note here, check out the archetypes to see, do any of them resonate? Like, are you by any chance acting the victor or the martyr or any of these? Just see, is there anything in there that resonates with you? Well, let's see now, highly strong nervous systems. Anyway, I might be holding you up now.
No, it's,
as I say, I had a stack of stuff here, but it's not going to work now because you're on your way out. Isn't that right?
well, yeah, but we really wanted your input, because this.
And I was waiting to do this all day.
Oh,
looking other bits of stuff and thinking.
Well, we're here.
Yeah,
we're here now. So if you have any
anyway,
other.
What had I got? Okay, I was looking at, say, these psychic vampires. I didn't know where to start with the psychic vampires and the empaths. So the empaths, I had to ask myself, what's the difference between a psychic vampire and an empath? So having looked at the bits and pieces, I came to the conclusion that as an empath is who you are, that you can actually feel other people's feelings and their sensations very, very, very strongly.
Acutely, yeah.
Whether you want to or not, it happens to you. When you're in someone's energy, you feel their distress, you feel their whatever's happening in your life. And unfortunately, what one of our little men said in the videos was, and I can't think what his name was now. I looked at James Bloom, and I looked at James Bloom and our man here whispering ideas. He seems to have a lot of nice videos, whispering ideas. But he was saying, unfortunately, as you get older, you become more of an empath.
Empathic.
Yes, that you can't, that for some reason you become more sensitized to how people are behaving. So you need to be aware of that. And I liked the idea of he gave you the different things about projection, about people are projecting their own ideas onto us, something that they have buried deep down or don't want to admit to. And when they see us, they're projecting that. If you have someone at work who's constantly criticizing you or telling you you're not doing this properly, or why do you think you could even do this? The truth is that that's what's going on in their life. So to be aware of the fact that it could be projection, not to take everything. That's why building up your own self-esteem is very important, not to take everything as being because of you or that it's your fault.
Yeah, and I really think, like, too, it's just again, it all comes back to boundaries.
Yes.
The energy, suckers, or vampires.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a line, and we don't, and if we don't defend our line, I think it's really a thing about boundaries, but it would be nice to be in a position where when that happens, when somebody is criticizing you about something, that you stop and say, wonder where that's coming from, and start analyzing that instead of reacting to it. Start analyzing it. And it's that, how do you, and really it's about, laying out some signs, but Kate has a workbook that she's found that's really helpful. It's in the description. And
Great.
then I found this little book. It's called A Mental Health Journal. And
Okay.
It's really, I think it would be really cool for 30 days to use it and then go back and look and see what's repeating, and what a great way to start. So I'm kind of like ready to start doing this shadow work stuff, maybe.
And I think we have to get ready we have to have a few stock. Now, when we're starting off on this whole idea, sometimes it's very hard to say no to people. You're caught off guard and you can't say no to them. So I noted down a few things that you say no, how you say no to people.
I have to remind myself on many occasions that no is a complete sentence.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to define it. You don't have to define it. You don't have to justify it.
All that sort of stuff. But really, to remember that no is a complete sentence is really, really hard for me.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Something just popped into my mind. I'm just going to throw it out to the group, see what y'all think about it, and we can discuss it later. But as in the idea of experiment and exploration, what if we all took 30 days or 60 days on our own and did some of this work, and then what we were comfortable at sharing in a public forum, bringing it back? I would like to revisit this conversation in 30 or 60 days when we had a chance to kind of experience some of this each individually. I'd love to know how you guys are reacting and how you feel about some of this stuff, because I get so much from you ladies that I would really like that, if that's something you're all comfortable with, of course, and we can discuss the details of that later.
Sure. Oh, I like that idea. I'm in.
Oh, I'm in. If I remember.
Okay, well that's 4. So
yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you all a copy of this, of just one page of this thing that I have that I'm going to start. And then I meant to start it like a couple of days ago, but now you gave me the incentive to start it like today. But just
today's the day. Yeah.
And then to be able to go back, and I mean, and you guys can buy your own. It's in the link, but then to get started, so everybody can get started right away, and then go back and look and analyze it right before the next meeting. Do you want to do this for the next meeting as a follow up to shadow work, or starting shadow work? I don't know what you want to call it.
And I think it sounds like a very good idea. There's a lot. When you were saying earlier, Lynn, you said that there's a lot involved in this. When I saw your suggestion initially, there wasn't a lot coming at me about psychic vampires. See, I kind of had an idea what they were and all that, but I didn't realize how much was involved.
Yeah, me either.
And what potential there was there for hurt. And what you're, as you say, setting boundaries and deciding what you're going to do. So there's a lot involved there, and maybe people would benefit from finding out maybe what spreads we had used, or what, because again, to bring it back to the whole tarot thing that people might like to use with their cards, to bring it back to what spreads we found useful, or what questions we found useful. Say 3 or 4 different sets of questions for different areas. Say,
and that would help any tarot reader, not only for self-discovery, but for, I have a shop, and I actually had somebody come up the other day and say, I am really mean to my partner right now. I have anger issues. And I don't know why. I just, out of the blue, I just take stuff out on her, and I don't know why. And I wanted so bad. It's like, well, and I tried to start a conversation with her about that, but I really didn't have anywhere to go with it. Maybe in 30 days from now, I'll have a lot more in my arsenal to be able to help someone. Yeah. I think more so than just throwing cards. We can delve more into the cards, and watch this video back. After I post it,
I will surely watch
because Dee came up with major arcana cards that could represent.
I was looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, all these things happen for a reason, so you have to be just aware of that there's some reason for that.
Okay.
Maybe be more tuned in.
Anne Marie, I hate to cut you off because we love you. We've missed you.
Well,
Yvonne had a family emergency, could not come in today, so we were sorry. We miss her too. And anyway, so next month let's do that. I will send information to Yvonne and to all of you, and please look at the description below. We will do a follow-up, but it will be for shadow work, not for psychic. Not for
shadow work,
psychic vampires, and how psychic work can help benefit our tarot, practices. And they're all different.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And again, what kind of questions? I think the questions are really important, to come up with questions that would be helpful.
Well, you guys, I love you all, and I can hardly wait to see you in April. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.